Hey friends, welcome to Season 8 of the Let's Get Real podcast. I'm Justin.
And I'm Trisha.
Every week, we have honest conversations about life, love, and leadership without the pressure to pretend.
Whether you're in a great season or a messy one, this space is for grace and truth and real connection.
And this season, we're diving into some powerful conversations with each other, with friends, and with leaders who are making a difference by leading from a place of authenticity.
So whether you're listening in the car, out on a walk, maybe just hiding in your pantry for a little peace and quiet, this podcast is for you.
Let's dive into Season 7 and get real. Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Let's Get Real podcast with Justin and Trisha Davis. I'm Justin, one of the hosts of the podcast, and today we're going to dive into the deep end of the pool when it comes to youth sports. We're going to be joined in just a few minutes by Brian Smith and Ed Uszynski. And Brian is the author of several books, including the book we're going to talk about today called Away Game, A Christian Parent's Guide to Navigating Youth Sports and the Christian Athlete, Glorifying God in Sports. He's been on staff. Brian's been on staff with Athletes in Action since 2008. He's a graduate of Wake Forest University. He's got a master's degree in theology and sports studies through Baylor University. And Brian lives in Lowell, Michigan with his wife and 3 kids. Ed Uszynski is an author, speaker, and a sports minister with over 3 decades of experience discipling college and professional athletes. And he and Brian's latest book, Away Game, is absolutely phenomenal. It's very convicting, and it's a book I wish I would have had 10 years ago when my kids were in youth sports. Ed has 2 theological degrees from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and a PhD in American Cultural Studies from Bowling Green State University. He and his wife, Amy, have 4 children, and they live in Xenia, Ohio. So guys, I don't know if you caught that or not, but Brian lives in Michigan. Ed lives in Ohio. They have come together to write a book on youth sports. Anything is possible when it comes to the power of God in our life. A Michigan man and an Ohio guy writing a book on sports. It's going to be a rich conversation. Can't wait to dive into it with you. Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Let's Get Real podcast. Super excited for this conversation that we're getting ready to dive into. As I mentioned in the intro, we're going to dive into the deep end of the pool when it comes to youth and sports. And so some of you are going to be challenged, some of you are going to be affirmed, and some of you are going to be really convicted by this conversation. And I know I'm going to be all 3 of those things as a parent of kids who went through the sports journey. But we're joined by Brian Smith and Ed Uszynski. And guys, thanks so much for being on the Let's Get Real podcast today.
Thanks for having us, Justin.
Well, I want to dive into your book because I think it's super powerful and very practical for a lot of people. But before we do that, would love just for each of you to take some time and just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and maybe your family.
Yeah, my name is Brian Smith. I've been on staff with a sports ministry called Athletes in Action for 17 years now. Been married for 20 years with my wife, Lindsay, who we started dating junior year in high school. We both ran track and cross country. She went to University of Wisconsin-Madison to run. I went to Wake Forest University. And so we did long distance for 4 years. We have 3 kids now, live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we are both the cross country coaches of our local high school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good team. A good cross-country team.
I ran 4 miles. So I'm getting ready to run a half marathon in November.
Nice.
And it's a new journey for me. I ran a half marathon like 12 years ago, but I've never experienced that runner's high, Brian. Everybody talks about it. I've never gotten there. It's just runners, they're low is kind of how I would describe
runners low.
So I admire people who run without people chasing them. And I'm still looking for that euphoric experience, but I am getting in better shape. And I ran a further distance today. I'm building up to the 13.1. So
there you go. Love it. Hey, yeah. Keep chasing the high. Keep chasing the high.
The high is out there. It's out there somewhere, isn't it?
Hopefully I'll get it between now and November.
There you go.
So my name is Ed Uszynski, and I was a basketball player, so that was the extent of my running. I just like running 90 feet stretches back and forth. And Amy and I have been married 25 years. We have 4 kids. ranging in age from 24 to 14. So 3 of them are in college and 1 is a freshman in high school. So we just keep saying we've got one more chance to try to get this right, you know? And she was a 2-sport athlete in college, and I played basketball in college for a hot second and then ended up not playing the rest of my time in school. But we grew up in sports homes. She was a huge hockey home up in Minneapolis. A bunch of her family were in the Olympics and played in the NHL.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was a high school football coach on the west side of Cleveland. So sports has been our life. We also work with athletes in action like Brian and Lindsay, and we've been doing it for 33 years. So Brian and I have been saying we've got over 50 years experience between us working with college and professional athletes, which is where our focus is, until we became parents and started coaching. And now we're spending a lot more time thinking about how in the world do we do this youth sport thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a question that a lot of parents are asking. I love Athletes in Action, or we'll put the link to Athletes in Action in the show notes as well. Had a lot of friends when I was in high school and college, and even, was influenced by people who would come to our high school from Athletes in Action and share their testimony. And they were phenomenal athletes and great at their sport, but also followers of Christ. It's just a super important ministry that really appreciate you guys and your investment in that over the years. But I want to talk about your brand new book. It's called Away Game. And I mentioned this in the intro that a guy in Michigan and a guy in Ohio come together to write a book, had to be inspired by the Holy Spirit, about youth sports. Talk to me a little bit about just the heart behind the book and what, obviously we can talk more specifically, but just the big picture idea of the book in a country where youth sports is basically out of control. You guys are trying to help Christian parents find some sanity in that.
Yeah. I'll let Brian do most of it, but I would just say that it started for us, like I said, when we started coaching, when we started having to make decisions about what to do with our kids with all the different opportunities available, we realized, Brian and I did, that we needed an intervention. We needed help. And we're looking around as Christian dads and just realized there really wasn't hardly anything written specifically to Christians about how to make choices and, what's right and wrong. What does it look like actually to still operate like a Christian in that space? It just wasn't happening. And that's really where the discussion began for us, that turned into the book. So go ahead, Brian. Why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, so we're having 2 parallel conversations in the book, and the first is helping us and the audience understand what we call the youth sport industrial complex, which is a $40 billion industry. In fact, I just read the other day that's more than the entire video game industry right now. So youth sports has the market on everything. So what we're trying to do is say this is what we call it the YSIC, Youth Sports Industrial Complex, is trying to do. It's actually, whether we know it or not, it's forming us in a number of different ways that we talk about in the book. And so we're trying to give parents and ministry leaders language to understand what's actually happening in the youth sports culture right now, so that you can see it and recognize it and put a name to it. But then we don't want to just get stuck there. It's really easy to talk negatively and to spiral when it comes to youth sports. And so the other part of the conversation we're having is, what does it look like then for specifically Christian parents to live faithfully in what is a broken system? Yeah. So we liken it in the very beginning to, it's kind of like Daniel living in Babylon. What does it look like to exist in a culture where the values of that culture are almost anti-gospel at times? What does it look like to live faithfully in a broken system and not completely eject from it? And so we're giving very practical solutions and tips for parents that we have tried and succeeded and tried and failed, but we've tried. And so we're giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly of our experience.
I think there's this dynamic that exists in sports, and I have 2 kids that have gone through, all of my kids when they were growing up played sports, from flag football. I have 2 specifically that were very competitive, were on travel teams. It basically dominated our life for their 4 years of high school, even into college. For the parent that is trying to navigate, let's talk about early on. Okay. So they have a 6 or 7 year old right now. the whole focus is fun, right? Let's have fun. Let's learn, sportsmanship. Like it starts out being value driven, and then it transforms the older kids get into more of a lifestyle, of a drive to be the best or to earn a scholarship. For that parent that may be starting out that journey, what are some important things that you guys would say to consider? As you mentioned, Brian, sports is going to form and shape not just their character, but also our theology is shaped a lot by our sports culture. For that parent that's kind of starting out that journey, what are some things they should think through?
You had mentioned that sports starts off as fun and value driven, and then slowly kind of escalates into maybe we can use a word like serious. It's more like performance based. What we're arguing in the book, though, Justin, is it's flipped the last 10 to 20 years. And at the youngest possible ages now, it is not fun for kids anymore. At some levels it is, right? But what we're seeing more and more by just from the research is that kids are not having fun because adults and entrepreneurs and coaches are almost putting this professional level model and embedding it into the youth sports system. And so for parents, especially as they're starting out, I would say just be wary of, like, as you enter into the process of youth sports from an early age, as much as you can to protect the experience of fun and play for your kids. And so that might mean being intentional with what league or what team you put them on. Maybe more importantly than that, though, is your posture and your tone, how you cheer at games should largely be reflective of a parent who's just wanting their kid to learn and have fun and enjoy the process of sport, and not be overly obsessed with trying to get your kid into college when they're 6 years old.
One of the, which is funny, but it was funny because I was thinking the same thing, Justin, when you said that. I thought, well, you're actually really lucky if your 6 or 7 year old is in an environment where they're having fun with their sport. Seriously, that's not an exaggeration. And we, like Brian said, there are environments, there are leagues where fun is still emphasized, but I will say that's not what I've seen with my kids in the spaces that we have here in the Dayton area, which is where I'm at. It's like, it is super competitive. And it's a result of the $40 billion industry. Yeah. Okay. We've said all along, there's nothing wrong with making money on youth sports, just like every other aspect of society. Somebody's going to find a way to make money on it. But when that happens, more than likely the kids are the ones that are going to lose out because their best interests are not necessarily kept first and foremost. The interest that's being pursued is that our business works. And so we'll use fear, which is a huge component, I think, of what is messing with us as parents, is that we're afraid our kids are going to miss out if they're not put on this track, if they're not put in the best in front of the best. Everybody's saying they're the best.
Right.
So, how do we get our kid in front of the best team on the best league with the best this, that, and the other? And we think you should probably avoid, as long as you can, getting on what we're calling select teams or club teams. I would just avoid it as long as you can. It's okay to play in the Y League. It's okay to play in the rec league. Now, again, some of those are just, they've been so stripped of all talent and stripped of good coaches that it's maybe not an option for you because it's just so poorly run. But that's just a principle of we would hold off as long as possible getting into that select system and club system.
And we don't communicate that in the book, though.
We really don't. No,
I mean, you can tell our position on it in the book, but what we're trying to communicate is, if whether you're in the YMCA league or you're paying thousands upon thousands of dollars on the travel elite squads, the opportunity for you to disciple your kids in the midst of their experience is still available. Maybe you're just paying $5,000 for it instead of $500 for it.
It's good.
When you guys say, hold off or resist that temptation, it's funny you use the word select. My son Isaiah was on a select team. It was called Select. And they were sponsored. They were on a circuit.
Yeah.
For the parent that feels like, man, if I do that, they're going to be, they're not going to be, they're going to be forgotten. They're not going to be as advanced. They're not going to be as far ahead as this other kid. How do you navigate that fear, or what I would maybe classify as parental insecurity?
Yeah.
The kid may not even at 10 years old, they may not even know that, right? It's the parents that are feeling insecure. It's the parents that are feeling fearful. It's the parents that are nervous that if my kid doesn't make this volleyball team with this coach, their future, they're never going to play high school volleyball.
Yeah.
How do you guys navigate that tension?
Yeah, so this is where it's really important for us just to understand what the industrial complex of youth sports is trying to do, and the result of it, because it is promising that it's promising, the system is promising, if you get your kid involved early on in this and this and 20 other things, what's being promised is you'll have the opportunity you want. What the research is saying is that 70% of kids by the age of 13 are quitting sports, largely because they're saying it's not fun anymore. And so what does that tell us? We are trying to give our kids the best experience possible based on what the youth sports industry is saying. Over 70% of kids don't want that. They want to play and they want to have fun with their kids.
Yeah.
So we would go as far as saying you may be better positioning your kid to not get on that team in high school because of everything you're doing at a young age. And not just the research shows that, like, you should be able to see that anecdotally too. Just like watch the level of seriousness at some of these games and practices, and then kind of do an inventory. Is my kid like really enjoying this? Are they having fun? Because ultimately that's going to keep them tethered to sport up to the point where they're at high school anyway.
Well, and they're being forced to specialize so early that it becomes a year round. It's professionalized.
Yeah.
We're treating our 10-year-olds are having a professional experience where they're doing one sport and training in one sport year round, maybe trying to sneak a second one in there somewhere. And that wears out professional athletes. So of course it's going to wear out the 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But here's the other reality, Justin, and you got a vantage point on this too, because your kids are the age that they are. There's a million things that have to go right for your kid to be able to play on any given team in high school. You don't know who's going to move into the district. You don't know what kids are coming and going, who's going to be eligible, who's going to get someone pregnant or get pregnant that's going to take them out, get injured, lose interest. You don't know who the coach is going to be, who may or may not like your kid, or for any number of reasons. Every school district has their own politics that you're not usually aware of until you get involved in the actual school system. There are so many things. Maybe your kid plays one position that he or she's gotten really good at, and you happen to be on a team that's got 4 other kids that are just better than your kid at that position after all the training that everyone's gotten. And so at the end of the day, there's so many things that are outside of our control for that even to become a reality, even if your kid becomes the best they can be. And that's the other side of it too. If your kid's going to be good, it's going to be because they want to get good. It's not going to be because we pay a gazillion dollars and travel all over the place. It's because they're going to go out in the driveway and do reps and try to get better at whatever the skill is because they want to. Not because I'm hassling and haggling with them all the time.
So good. You know, it's interesting too, perspective, because if you would ask me, Justin, what does basketball mean to your family? I would say basketball has been some of the greatest life lessons that our family could have ever learned. If you would ask my wife, what does basketball mean to your family? She would say basketball's brought some of the deepest wounds that our family's ever experienced. And it's an interesting dynamic. And we were sharing a little bit before we started recording. I have 3 biological sons. The oldest and the youngest both played basketball. And my oldest son was, he was on great teams all through high school. He played for a school in Nashville called Christ Presbyterian Academy. They won 2 state championships. He was a starter his senior year, ended up going to Indiana Wesleyan and won 2 national championships there. And it was a constant grind for him emotionally. And he was 6 feet tall, 6'1" maybe, and just always a step behind. Hardest worker, but just did not have the athleticism. Then you have my other son who was 6'9". Things came easier for him, but the mental and emotional toll of the game just got to a place. He had 12 full ride scholarship offers. He ended up going to Huntington University, and he gets to Huntington. It's in the same conference as Indiana Wesleyan, if you're not familiar with Huntington. And the coach calls me about 2 weeks into the season. He's like, Justin, something's up with Isaiah. He's freezing up. He's locked up. He can just tell he's just mentally and emotionally just not there. And he had twisted his ankle and it kind of got in his head. He was the number 1 recruit, full ride scholarship. He had all this pressure on him. So I fly out to Oregon for their first game, and he doesn't play in the first game. And we have a conversation after that game, and he's just like, I just feel like I'm going to let him down. I feel like if I make a mistake, it's, they made a mistake. And I said to him, Isaiah, you're not being recruited anymore. They want you.
Yeah.
And he had gotten to this place where he was playing for approval rather than playing from approval.
Good.
And quite honestly, guys, as I look back now that both of them are done playing basketball, I think that came from me. I don't think it came from, because when they would get in the car after an upward basketball game, I would rattle off their stats.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And trying, but what I thought is I was being encouraging. Like you had 12 points and 14 rebounds. That was amazing. Well, what they took that as, that's what Dad values. How do you, as you guys deal with athletes and you're talking to parents, Christian parents, people who want to follow, are following Christ, for the parent who is struggling right now to be overly involved in their child's development or recruitment or whatever that might be, their athletic career, what advice would you give to those? I'm going to say dads primarily. Maybe there's some moms that are, overly involved as well. But just from my perspective, I was way more into it than my wife. She wanted to support them. I wanted to develop them. What were some advice that you guys would give as athletes yourself and also parents of athletes?
I would start with saying, like, the over involvement, the bigger issue is, what are we being overly involved in? Because as a dad, I have 3 kids, freshmen in high school, 1 in middle school, 1 in elementary school. I want to be over involved when it comes to sport, but when it comes to their spiritual formation. And so, Justin, like what you just explained is a beautiful example of how we can help our kids understand the gospel through their experience in sport. And so what I am trying to do over and over again, I fall short all the time, but I'm trying to help my kids say, like, see, Dad loves you regardless of how sport went today. And this is like one of the primary ways I am discipling them, because they're playing sport. Is the rest of the world and the youth sport industrial complex is going to tell them that their worth is always going to be tied to their latest performance. Even if they do really, really well, they still got to do it again, right? Like, you can be a champion, but it doesn't matter unless you can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And man, I want my kids to be released from that and to experience the gospel through their relationship with me, and just know that regardless of how I play today, when we get in the car, Dad's still going to love me. We're still going to listen to music, and I'm okay with that his affection towards me is not based on how I perform on the field today. And so that's what I would encourage dads and moms with, is like, be over involved in communicating that gospel type language to your kids through sport, because the rest of the world is going to be communicating the exact opposite.
That's so good.
It is good. And it also sounds counterintuitive. And Justin, I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yep.
Again, we talked a little bit before we started recording, and I had a son that had a similar experience, almost verbatim. And what I wish, and again, I get one more chance with now a freshman in high school. What I want to keep saying to myself is leave him alone.
Yeah.
Shut up. We can just have straight talk here. Leave him alone. Stop correcting him. Stop celebrating his stats. Like, just leave and ask if he's having fun. Let's just explore. Are you having fun today? Why or why not? Let's just stay there with him. Now, that's really hard. Basketball is my sport. Basketball was your sport. When it's your sport, you're sitting there watching games, making a list of the corrections and how
you got all the answers. You have all the answers.
Well, and also you get in the car and you're like, why didn't you play? Why did you only play 16 minutes? And Logan, who sucks, played 28 minutes. You could have done much better, right? So then you're planting a seed of dysfunction in your kid's mind toward the coach and toward a teammate, and there's this angst and this disunity that I think I unknowingly sowed into both my kids, to where it was difficult for them to go into practice believing that the coach had their best interest at heart, because at home I'm saying, man, you should be playing 32 minutes. Like, why are you even coming out of a game?
Yes. Yeah. Justin, good. And we could just, again, have our own little counseling session right now. We all know that feeling. So listen, that is not going to benefit them. That's what we want to say from the other side to listeners. That is not benefiting them. It's actually hurting them in ways that we won't even realize until maybe years down the road, when they can actually identify it and express it to us in their 20s. And Brian and I have been saying for years, what we want are our kids to come back home for Thanksgiving when they're 25.
Yeah.
And I mean, seriously, we laugh about it, but some of us will not have that kind of relationship with them because of the way we operated in this youth sports space with them.
Yeah.
And what we unintentionally communicated to them, even with best interest. I need counseling. Seriously, guys, like I have to keep asking myself, why does this bother me so much? It doesn't bother him. In fact, it bothers me that it doesn't bother him.
What is broken in me that I'm imposing this on my kid?
Yes. And there's good answers to that. There really are. Like, I have regrets that I want to see made up for in him or her. I want them to be an extension of me so I can feel good about myself in front of other parents. I don't like the negative identity feelings I have when you do terrible as part of this team. Again, that's embarrassing to say, but I feel that, and I want that to change. Yeah. I want you to have a better experience than what I had, and the path to that is to do X, Y, and Z, which I either didn't do or I did it poorly, and I want you to do it better. So I'm projecting onto you something that I didn't even do well.
Yeah.
And you're going to fix it for me. Oh,
the name of the book is Away Game. I wish I would have known you guys were writing it. I could have given you a bunch of illustrations of what not to do, because I when my youngest son, Isaiah, when he, after his freshman year, I mentioned before we started recording, he had a mental and emotional breakdown. And I've shared this story publicly. He's given me permission to share it, so I'm not going out of line here. But the first thing that my oldest son said to Isaiah after he decided to walk away from basketball and transfer to a different school, Micah said, "I wish I would have had the courage to do that."
Right on.
And Micah didn't want to disappoint me. Isaiah didn't want to either, but he felt that my disappointment was going to be a smaller price to pay than the grind and the mental and emotional toll it was taking on him. For parents that may have lost that perspective, how can parents help re-enter into a place of fun and enjoyment and recreation and life skills and values, and use, to your point, Brian, allow the gospel to be present in sports? Like, the gospel's the totality of our life. So how can that gospel message come through for parents as they're navigating youth sports with their kids?
Yeah. One of the beautiful things about the gospel, and let's just put this on the table and think about how often this applies, whether we're talking about marriage or different relationships. sometimes the best way forward is to start by apologizing, which is a humbling thing to do with our kids. But again, if we recognize ourselves as having maybe done some things that have not been helpful, as you're listening to this, I've had great conversations with my kids about what I wish I had done differently with them and what I was afraid of. Like, I've just owned and been honest about it with them and apologized. And it's done a world of good for our relationship to do that. And I meant it. I wasn't just doing it to be cutesy with it. Like, I really am sorry for it. I don't know what I'm doing. And they got the worst of it. And we had great conversations then about how to move forward out of that.
That's good.
Yeah, if we're talking about how to keep it fun, a couple thoughts. One is to have a regular check-in with our kids. Do you want to play football again next year? You don't have to if you don't want to. Do you want to sign up for basketball in the winter? Do you want to run track in the spring? And not just assume because they did it last year that they're going to want to do it again. And so we're trying to make a point in our house to have that conversation every year. Our 5th grade son, it's his 3rd year playing tackle football, and he's already said, I don't want to do this again next year. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to. We don't need to make that decision now, but I hear you. Let's have the conversation again when you're in 6th grade.
Which can be really hard. That's hard if you've invested years in it already, or it's your favorite sport. Or again, I've had this conversation with parents. Their community forms in football. Right. And so if my kid's not going to be part of that anymore, like, we're kind of on the outside now as adults with the other parents. That's hard, but it's right.
Plus, your kid will never be Jared Goff. I mean, how's that gonna, how's that dream gonna come to reality? Playing for the Detroit Lions if he stops playing football in 5th grade.
It's true. It is true. So we're careful to not use language like we are a track family or we are a football family. Because I don't want my kids to get into a spot where they feel like they're letting the Smith family name down if they don't play another year of football. And so that's one, is just having a regular conversation of, hey, do you want to do this again? You don't have to if you don't want to. We do want you to play a sport because there's a lot of good that comes with it. That's another conversation. But you don't have to play a sport you don't want to play. And then the second one for me, I really need to work on this. When my kids are playing sports in the yard, because they still do that from time to time with friends, I just need to go inside and let them play. The coach and the over analyzer in me wants to go watch and involve myself somehow and to try to make the game better. I don't know if this story made the book, but a couple years ago, my kid was having some friends over. They're getting ready to play a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. And so they got all 6 kids over, and the parents dropped the kids off. They're playing basketball in our driveway, and all of us adults got involved right away. I decided to be a referee. Other parents decided to coach. And it got to the point where it was like I was telling my son to guard the right hand of his cousin because he can't go left. He can't go left. And so just favor that right hand. And it got so intense, and kids started crying. This is like 7th and 8th grade level. The kids are crying because we as adults made it into something bigger than it needed to be. We left, and they started laughing and having fun and making up their own games. And so it's just a reminder for me of, like Ed was saying, just leave them alone. Yeah. Kids are going to default to play. We just need to let them do it. Yeah. So
Parents in Ohio,
we don't need to strategize for how to make it fun. If we just let them do it,
they'll do it.
They're going to find ways to have fun. It's us who want to take it from fun and make it a bigger deal than it really is.
Parents in Ohio already intuitively do that. You Michigan parents have to learn that lesson. I was just like, all right. Let me just throw one more thing in, Brian. I love how you said, not to make them play a sport if they don't want to play it anymore. I'll flip it around and say, let them play sports that you probably are not all that excited about. That's happened a bunch of times in this house. I'll never forget when one of our sons came home and said he wanted to start doing skeet shooting. And just like skeet shooting, like with guns and shooting clay pigeons. And so for a couple seasons, he wanted to do that. The freshman, who I was so looking forward to this fall, lifting with him and getting shots up before this basketball season, he decides a few weeks ago he wants to play golf. So he's on the dang golf team now. And I'm like, oh, and inside I'm like, that's not golf. Like, I want to shoot with you, man. Let him play golf and let's celebrate it. So that's the thing. Like, don't pout about it and, be mopey and not go to this stuff. Like, go and celebrate it and get involved in the subculture of it. Let it be their journey instead of messing with it.
So good. I think understanding our motivation as parents is not understanding, being honest about it. So like, my son Isaiah, when he was at Huntington, he was struggling the whole year. And so I said, you know what, send me your Huddle account login and I'll watch practice every day and I'll text you some encouragement.
Yes.
Right. Like freaking
totally
psycho.
Get it.
We should have met a year ago. This would have been great.
Totally with you, man.
But my heart was to encourage him.
Yes,
for sure.
But my delivery at times was criticism. What's your body language right now? Like, why are you so down? You're the best player out there. Why don't you go out and act like it? And I wouldn't say it that way, but that's how he would receive it. And I think being honest about our motivation and our motives, Jesus talks a lot about motives, way more than behavior. Right. And I think when we're honest as parents about our motives, it helps us then really assess why our kids are playing the sports they're playing and what we hope to gain from it. Yeah. Right. And that's a hard thing to be honest about because it really reveals some brokenness in us and some work that God needs to do. As you guys have, talked about the book and written this book, what's one thing, if you could, for each of you, that you could drill down and say, here's the one thing I want the parents that read this book to walk away with? What would that be for each of you? It might be the same thing, but it might be different.
Yep. It's going to be what I'm hoping is my takeaway from writing the book is that I am wanting to enter into every game practice with a kingdom value set of eyes, which is really hard because I'm a sports junkie. I love all things sports and I want to be the analyzer. I want to talk about it, not because I want to fix my kids. I just like talking about sports. But I want myself and people reading this book to learn how to approach a game and see things beyond scoreboard metrics, to see things like how did they respond to the kid that blew the game when everybody else was ignoring him, the coach was yelling at him. How did they respond to that kid? I want parents to learn how to have eyes for when the ref or official makes a bad call and they're watching how their kid responds. So instead of getting on the ref ourselves, what if we just locked into our kids and really started to assess, man, how are they responding in this moment when they feel like they've had this perceived injustice? Wow. And really learn how to turn those into discipleship opportunities. That's my heart in the book, because I want parents to learn how to use sport as a vehicle for discipleship.
Well, again, Brian, we talk about this all the time. That will actually have a tangible result when they're 25. Focusing on the virtue side of things, the character side, the how do you respond to life? What a great laboratory sports provide for us to have a gazillion conversations that will result, hopefully, in them being a Jesus follower and put them on a trajectory to live a different kind of life in their 20s. Whether or not they learn to hit the pitch that's on the outside corner with 2 strikes when they're 12, it really won't matter when they're 25. It won't. Whether they got playing time or they were on the A team or the B team, it really, really doesn't matter when it's all said and done. And I think, so for me, Justin, how I'd answer that is that it really is okay to take your foot off the gas, parent. It's going to be okay without you pressuring them. I mean, again, isn't that, we've talked about that for half an hour here. It really will be okay. Yeah. Let God be the one that's in control of their sports journey. Let's even just go there. Like, maybe they're going to play past high school. Maybe they're not, but whatever. You're going to want God to be involved in that too. So So let him be the one that's in control of that. I worry about being in relationship with my kid.
Yeah, that's good.
I want my kid, when he messes up like the prodigal did, to come home and find the loving father all the time whose arms are wide open, and that's what they really feel, instead of the older brother whose arms are crossed and say, you don't deserve to be back here. And too often what I end up communicating is, in different ways, you don't deserve to be back here, and I'm not happy with what's going on.
Your intentions might be right too, right? We talked about that. You may have the best of intentions, but the way they receive it is older brother.
Yeah.
Take your foot off the gas, have fun, and enjoy just being present in the moment, watching your kid play a game or sit the bench or whatever their experience is. Enjoy that process. It goes by fast, and it really is okay to take your foot off the gas.
That sets you free when you have that perspective. It really does.
It does.
You enjoy the process yourself.
So good. And I know most of the parents listening to this podcast today, this is relevant because you're a part of the $40 billion industry of youth sports. So go get their book, Away Game, A Christian Parent's Guide to Navigating Youth Sports. We'll put all of the links in the show notes. Ed, tell people where they can find you, learn more about you online.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter a little bit, but I think the safest place is Brian made a website called thechristianathlete.com. And that's where I'm writing there. Brian's been writing there for years. And that's just kind of where I think we're going to be hanging out together for the foreseeable future.
Awesome. Brian, what about you?
Yep. Christianathlete.com. Lots of resources, trying to write things weekly there for athletes, coaches, and parents.
Sweet. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I feel like you need to send me an invoice for this counseling session because I feel a lot better. And, my wife was praying that this would be therapeutic for me. So just confession is good for the soul. But I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. And I'm praying that this book, it's formational for a new generation of kids that grow up knowing that their value and their identity does not reside in their last performance. And so
it starts in the church.
Yeah. Thanks so much for speaking into that.
It starts in the church, which we really didn't talk about, but really that's what our hope was, is that people in the church would lock arms and have this conversation together and help each other make it look different in our corner of the bleachers as Christians.
So good. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
Well, hey, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Brian and Ed as we talked about their brand new book, Away Game, A Christian Parent's Guide to Navigating Youth Sports. I don't know about you, but just their heart for formation of Christ in students and in athletes was really inspiring and convicting to me. We're going to put all of their information in the show notes where you can buy the book. And so make sure you check that out. And if you have a kid in youth sports or is going to be in youth sports someday, make sure you pick up that book because I know it's going to be helpful for you. Well, guys, have you checked out our new website yet? JustinandTrisha.com. We've created a space for you with new resources, a easy way to navigate and find help for all of your relationships. So make sure you check out JustinandTrisha.com. And if you're listening and would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can find that link in the show notes as well. Well, thanks for joining us for this conversation. We can't wait to talk to you again on the Let's Get Real podcast.
Thanks so much for joining us for another honest conversation. We hope that something in today's episode encouraged you, maybe even challenged you.
Our heart is to help you live with more connection, more purpose, and really more authenticity in every aspect of your life.
If this episode meant something to you, would you do us a favor? Would you leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast? It helps more people find these conversations.
Or better yet, share it with a friend. Shoot somebody a text message today. Let them know what you're listening to because you never know how God might use that to encourage somebody else.
We'll see you next time right here on the Let's Get Real podcast.